Yep. Sarun, that's fine.
Sarun.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarun. Let's get into your background and community connection. Can you share your personal journey and what drew you to advocacy work with the Cambodian community in Greater Philadelphia?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think my journey, of course, started when I was young. A lot of times is always about amplifying our visibility as Southeast Asians. When we think of Asian Americans, sometimes it just goes straight to East Asians or the South Asian experience. A lot of our East Asian communities have been in America for a very long time, South Asians as well. But a lot of people don't realize Southeast Asian does have a distinct, unique immigration story and arrival to the United States. So growing up, the inner passion was always not being seen as being Cambodian American. A lot of times people just assume you're Chinese. I know growing up throughout Philadelphia, if you grew up in Philly in the 80s and the 90s, it was always the Chinese corner store, right? Chinese corner store this, Chinese corner store that, poppy store, right? But there are a lot of Cambodian stores in the area that they just assume we're all Chinese. Which again, it's a tribute to how amazing the Chinese community has worked into establishing their community in Philadelphia, right? So for me, for sure, I think that not being able to fully express myself and my true identity in schools, in high school, for example, there were only three Asian Americans in my high school that I attended, and all three of us were Cambodian. But not many people knew that. They just assumed that we're just these, monolith type of people. So even going through college, there's a lot of Asian stereotypes that we don't relate to. Kind of like that idea of the model minority myth, having tiger moms. I'd never had a tiger mom experience. Our community, again, are survivors of genocide. We arrived in America as refugees. There's a lot of chronic lack of education in our community because of the wars. So you have individuals, for example, you may assume that, oh, let's just, I'm jumping too fast. But at any rate, there's so many social services that our organization provides. But for myself, it was always that, just not feeling seen by the Asian community and by the general public as a whole. And the last thing I'll share is there's an assumption that we can relate to each other, but sometimes we can't. I went to Penn State University and I joined various Asian American organizations. A lot of jokes or a lot of like experiences. I cannot relate to Chinese Americans or Japanese Americans or Korean Americans. That's a very telling thing when in your own AAPI community you don't can't relate to each other. And how do you think the general public sees that, right? So that I've always had this passion to segregate data, distinguish the different cultures, and celebrate together. Though, yeah.
How has the Cambodian community's presence shaped the cultural and economic fabric of Philadelphia neighborhoods like South Philly and beyond?
Oh yeah, I actually have a really short presentation. I want to share my screen about the Cambodian associations because it really paints that picture. I actually chopped it up a lot just so that we can continue the conversation. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and it's very fast, just so that the audience is also introduced to the work that has been done historically here. All right, so hope you see my screen. All right. So, yep, very quickly. So, amplifying visibility, alleviating barriers, and accessing resources. The Cambodian Association. We've been around for over 47 years now. We're one of the older organizations, AAPI organizations in the city, and that's telling because during the recession, so many cultural organizations didn't survive the recession and closed their doors. It was very sad. A lot of them were Asian. But we are happy that we are still here. We're still rocking it. We're still doing our thing, and it's really really great. But first and foremost, our organization, we have three facilities. We have one. Our home base is North Philadelphia at 5412 North Fifth Street in the Alney section. We have our South Philadelphia Center, which is in South Philly on 7th Street Business Corridor. And we recently just purchased a new facility, Patrick Hall, which is a venue space. People have concerts there, birthday parties, graduation parties, quinceañeras, and things like that. And that's our newest space. We've only had it for about 2 months, but we're currently working towards how to create venue space access for community groups and nonprofits more affordable, while also understanding that community also have for-profit events. So we do have three facilities, and the other key component is that we have programs and services that operate out of 8 locations. I got to update that. Out of 8 locations throughout the city. That's very surprising to a lot of people because they don't realize how large the Cambodian community is. A stipulation that I would like to share is that Cambodian community is very, very diverse within ourselves. So you have sometimes if you're traveling around, you hear the word Khmer. So Khmer are the ethnic people of Cambodia. That's our language, that's the people, that's our culture, Khmer. Cambodian is the general national origin. Within the Khmer identity, there's actually ethnic Chinese from Cambodia. There's a huge ethnic Chinese community here in Philadelphia. And then there's also Khmer Krom. So Khmer Krom are Cambodians from southern Vietnam. They're also considered the indigenous people of South Vietnam before it became the Vietnam that we know today. But they're the indigenous of South Vietnam. And of course, then you have a mix of Laobodians, mixed Lao and Cambodians, and everything in between. The reason why I bring this up is if you Google search how many Cambodians live in Philadelphia, that's an incorrect number. Because of our organization doing this work for nearly 50 years, we know a large portion are doing the census, but they might only write that they're ethnic Chinese, but not understand that they could also write Cambodian because they're from Cambodia as well. And then Khmer Krom might put Vietnamese because they're from Vietnam, even though they're ethnic Khmer. So the data within our Philadelphia and on the national level is miscalculated in a bit. So for Philadelphia, the Cambodian Association, we see it more as between 18 to 24,000 that lives in the city of Philadelphia that has some sort of heritage from Cambodia. So that's something that's very important to understand. So the different places and spaces we're at Taggart School, where we have our OC program. We're at local Cambodian temples, such as Phra Buddha Rang Say Temple. We do workshops there and sometimes events. We have the Bach building. That's where we partner with Cambodian American Girls Empowering to do our CLA programming, FDR Park, the Lao Temple in North Philadelphia, our Passion Hall venue space now, our North Philly office, and then our South Philadelphia Center. These are all spaces that are throughout the city, specifically in North and in South Philadelphia, Southwest Philly as well. And this is always a big shock to a lot of people, whether they're Asian or non-Asian. They're like, damn, y'all all over the damn place, right? So yeah, we have to do this. And then we'll jump straight into the different programs specifically this year. So these are programs that we run daily. We have our preschool program. We have our OST program, which is K to 8th. We have our summer camp, K to 8th. We have the Khmer Language and Arts Culture program that teaches Cambodian cultural dance, our heritage and such. Our case management social services, community health initiative, the Legacy Project, which focuses on elders, Care in Nature, which is a new program that we started about 2 years ago. I love acronyms, and Care in Nature is short for Cambodian American Refugee Elders in Nature. It's very important that we do talk about healing, whether it's mental health, physical health, or whatnot. Is very important. And that's birthed out of my work in environmental conservation with Nature RX. If you're not familiar with Nature RX, is this a movement to have not only go to the doctors for support, whether it's medication, but it's also saying and understanding that being in the environment, in nature, helps healing process as well. Then we have Khmer Safe and Strong, which birthed out of our violence intervention programming surrounding gun violence and community violence. This is a new program that we started about 2.5 years ago as well. We just renamed it. Amar Philly is digital literacy, which is focused on digital literacy for our community, the Lao community as well. And we also do video highlights, podcasts, and other computer classes for our community as well. And lastly, the Southeast Asian market in FDR Park. It's this market that a lot of people didn't realize existed for over 40 years. And we've been working with the city to make it a permanent home, working through processes and understanding how community operates, while also getting them business registered, understanding taxes, health, and all that stuff. So it's been an amazing work that we've been going through. And with that, that was a quick spiel I had to put around the Cambodian Association. There's a lot more to it, but we only have a short amount of time. But there we go.
So right now we want to pivot into housing and real estate. So I'm going to ask you a few questions on that. What are the most, our first question, what are the most significant housing challenges facing Cambodian and broader AAPI residents in the Philadelphia area today? And how can realtors be better partners in addressing them?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question, or just housing in general for Cambodian or Southeast Asian refugees. So the experience that we're having is probably not the same as other Asian groups, because our community came from refugee camps and displacement, right? We were in refugee camps for many, many years. One of the first things that a lot of our Cambodian families started doing, especially our elders who are now, who were the lead of the household when we first arrived, they worked hard and they purchased their own home. That's something that you don't really see a lot, but as refugees, as former refugees, having your own home permanently is very, very important. So a lot of the elders from our community through the 80s and the 90s actually own their own home, from working under the table in factories, saving money here and there. So I think that's something that very unique. Home ownership within our own community is actually pretty high already. Uh, the thing that we're seeing, the shift that we're seeing is now that the elders are, unfortunately, they're passing away, or they're not they're not the head of household anymore. It's the younger former refugee children that are now adults. We're seeing situations where they're selling the property, right? It's kind of like you're trying to grow, what was it, assets, right? Would we not want to save our housing that our elders bought for like a lot less in the past, I guess, or whatever the money situation is? So what we're seeing is a lot of the elders are passing away, and they're like passing on their property to the adult children. Adult children may not want to stay in that specific neighborhood, might want to move to South Philly or wherever. So they're actually selling the property and trying to invest in the other property. The unique issue that's happening now is, okay, your family were property owners, and now you're signing up for first home buyers, right? So it's kind of weird. It's like going backwards a little bit. But again, those properties that our elders do own are very old, right? And a lot of them are in North Philly, a lot of them are in South Philadelphia. So I think that's something that's unique. I don't know too deeply in that realm. I think that takes time, maybe even with your organization, to like really inspect and have questions or have a focus group around that. What is better for the community? Is it holding on to these assets and these properties that our elders bought with their like 100% from dollar bills, or is it to reinvest? That's not my realm when it comes to like that type of stuff. It's alien to me personally, but I think that's something worth investigating and seeing where the community will go next in our new era, in this new generation.
That's why it's so important to have cross-cultural conversations, because the same thing is happening in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are selling off the generational wealth, and they're blowing the money, and they're not even homeowners or utilizing the money to purchase their own property so that they can become, generate that equity and stuff. So that's why it's so important. And the more I talk to have cross cultural conversations, we all have the same issues within our communities.
So for the AAPI month and the celebration, I have two questions. For the AAPI Heritage Month, is a time to recognize both the struggle and the triumphs. So what's the chapter of Philadelphia's Cambodian history you feel deserves more recognition?
Yeah, I think to be recognized is to also be seen, and visibility and our voice. It goes back to the collection of disaggregation of data. That's something I've been fighting for 15 years plus. So when we say disaggregated data, it does not matter how much flowery language we put about our fight or about our work that we do if the numbers, the data doesn't show us in the actual struggle, right? So when we're talking about collection of data, whether it's health, education, economic development, we have to make sure that we don't just write Asian, right? Just putting down Asian and checking off a box that says Asian does not reflect the actual struggles and the needs of each community. It does a disservice. So what I'm trying to say is, when we collect data, no matter if it's Asian or other racial ethnic groups, breaking it down will really reveal how we can better utilize resources and funding. So what I'm trying to say is, they do collect it, but sometimes they don't implement it, and there's some spaces that still does Asian. So when we break down to Cambodian, Vietnamese, Chinese, Filipino, Korean, Japanese, when you break down those different pieces, you actually see who is actually struggling in education. In Philadelphia, there was a huge initiative to break down those different initiatives and do a report. And at the bottom of education attainment, you see the Southeast Asian community, right? We're right there with Latino community. We're the last, like the bottom 1/4 included our community. But because it's not seen, there's this assumption and stereotype that, oh yeah, all Asians are going to Ivy Leagues, all Asians are household income, blah, 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 blah. But we can't relate to that. And when those data is misleading, proper resources, proper support is not given or shared in its proper avenues, right? And economic development as well, So a lot of times, the major thing to answer your question is, to be seen, we must disaggregate data. So you'll see all the health disparities that's happening within the communities. You'll see the educational attainment that's issues. I went to Penn State, for example, and I had happened to become colleagues with someone who used to work in the recruitment data department of the Penn State spaces. They spend more money recruiting for international Asian students than they do to local, like our area students who are struggling to go to four-year colleges. At this point, also the college experience is also, what is it, right? Maybe in a few years it might not be a thing. At any rate, we're not seen enough and understood enough to understand that Southeast Asians, we have a different background, a different experience. So by disaggregation of data, we can better advocate and utilize funding, development, and all those pieces where it can best help people at the main core. Yeah.
So the other question is, what does authentic allyship from the real estate and the housing industry looks like to you, and other examples of partnership you would like to see more of?
Yeah, I think whether it's with your community or anybody, trust is always the main thing. And I think the partnership comes from partnering with trusted organizations and entities. I think every profession has its own stereotype. Every profession has its own little stigma. Trust is really big. Like, for example, sometimes some people might think dentists are like mechanics, right? Like, oh no, I'm not trying to dog mechanics, but I'm just the idea is that you're trying to oversell. Hey, you gotta take this, you gotta do this to your mouth, you gotta do that, right?
Sure.
But you know what I'm trying to say? So, and just like any organization, company, or whatever, I think trust is major. So I think that first and foremost, as individual real estate agents, maybe getting us to know you, right? Because right now I just met all three of y'all. I don't know who you guys are. I don't know what y'all do in your personal life. I don't know what your integrity is. You know what I'm trying to say? I was invited to this presentation. Like, sure, I talk more about my people. I love that. But at the end of the day, we're not best friends yet, right? So it's getting to know you as individuals. What are your morals? And go from there. And also y'all have to understand the community, what we've been through. I think that like Charlotte sharing, oh, you grew up in Alni. Hey, that's a point right there. Oh, you know the temple. Oh, you know where our office is. Those things are very important. So I would say that just as individuals and as companies, understanding building that trust really does start from the individual level to your company and beyond. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Two more. So looking forward, what's the one thing you wish more Philadelphians, including real estate professionals, understood about the Cambodian community's contributions to this city?
Yeah, just like it's not a good thing only to focus on the struggles we face, right? Celebrating our accomplishments is just as important because we do contribute back to the economy, contribute back to the city. Our city's more vibrant because of that. So I would say understanding that there's a commercial corridor on South 7th Street down here in South Philadelphia, which was abandoned. I don't want to say abandoned, but it was when we first arrived, it was nothing going on. Let's just say that it wasn't popping yet. So a lot of Cambodian community members ended up purchasing property all along the commercial corridor. We opened up businesses to the point where nearly, like I would say in the 1990s and 2000s, it was like 80% Cambodian, right? Southeast Asians. Because of our stewardship of that commercial corridor, it became immigrant friendly. Now, if you visit 7th Street and drive down, you'll see historically dozens of Cambodian businesses, but also Latino businesses. New arrivals from other countries are now opening up their shop there, and it's very, very immigrant friendly space. If you don't analyze and reflect, like, oh, how did it get like this? It's always been diverse. No, it's because the Cambodian community were the stewards to help make it welcoming, right? So that these other new groups that came in are feeling welcome to open up business. So that's one. Another one is, of course, the Southeast Asian market. The banners are behind me right here. Some people make from the Southeast Asian community, they travel from Cali, Seattle, DC, Lowell, just to visit this market in the summer. I always compared it to if you're into Harry Potter, it for our community it's always been there, but it was I've always called it a Cambodian Diagon Alley. So if you know the Cambodian, like if you know Diagon Alley from Harry Potter, it's like the secret market. So that's always been there for us for over 40, 50 years, right? 40 something years. But now it's public since COVID, it became public. And we've been working so hard, and they have thousands of visitors every weekend from April all the way through October. It's not a festival. It's not this one-time thing. It's every Saturday and Sunday, right? So that's something that's very important that we're contributing to the city. And a lot of these vendors were just regular immigrant vendors who were selling little things here and there, but they became so empowered that within this past 2-3 years, they signed up to be licensed. They did their licensing, business registration. They did the food safety. They have commissary kitchen. Now they're not immigrant vendors. They're small business owners, right? Contributing back. Some of them even hired their first staff. Talk about awesome, right? And now we're working towards our permanent home. There's so, and then also faith-based, cultural, everything. We're the fabric of the city, and it's important to understand that not just Cambodian, but other ethnic groups, if you give them the opportunities, the resources, the attention, the visibility, and listen to us at the same time, magic can happen, and we contribute back to our city. I know that was long-winded, but I get passionate about just our journey as Cambodian Americans. Yeah.
Yeah, great. The other question is what initiatives or programs is the Cambodian Association Great Philadelphia most excited about in the coming year?
What we're most excited about, again, I would say just access to, um, you know, just everything that I shared earlier, honestly, just to continue to amplify it. We have some newcomer immigrants that are arriving in our city. And with the different administration, right, that's currently going on, we want to remind people that our city is a welcoming city, is a sanctuary city, that you can come here to live here, move here, thrive here, open businesses, buy real estate, be part of this beautiful, I don't know if they still call it the American dream, but I would say that it's still real and don't want people to lose sight that you can build a life here, specifically in Philadelphia. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.